YouTube, Awesome Rider here. Welcome to a Power Rangers related video. We're going to be talking about another Power Rangers rumor from Jinsaku, and I know not a lot of people like when I talk about these rumors because we don't know whether they're going to end up being true or not, but there's two main reasons I wanted to talk about this. But the rumor he's putting out there is that the upcoming Power Rangers reboot that's supposed to be under Disney Plus / Hulu, because, you know, it's kind of like a hybrid thing now, and it's weird that you can go on Disney Plus and see American Horror Story right next to cartoons. But this is by the guys that did Percy Jackson. I don't remember, I think I just said Perthy. But anyway, Percy Jackson. I don't remember if both of these guys did it. Jonathan E. Stamberg, who, like, the Jonathan in there just makes me think of Entwistle, and Dan Shots? I've heard it both ways. The rumor he has for this reboot is that it's supposed to begin production in January in London, and that it's going to be then premiering in late 2026. Now, again, two reasons I wanted to make this video. Number one, to make the "in London" joke, but also to discuss this idea, if this is true. Like, I'm not sure. I feel like some stuff from Jinsaku has been true and some hasn't. This feels like really fast to me. Like, the idea of maybe a January start, seems right, but it feels like a fast turnaround for it to come out at the end of the year. I mean, I guess if it's like maybe December, but I don't know. I guess it just depends on what kind of VFX and stuff they're using. I just don't want to see it be something that's, churned out too quickly. We don't know what kind of behind the scenes work they're doing right now, if any, though, so who knows? I certainly would be hopeful for that because it would mean sooner rather than later, but we'll have to see in regards to that. But the other reason outside of the "in London" thing I wanted to make the video for was I don't necessarily want to discuss as ad nauseum what I want to see out of the reboot. I've talked about that so much. You guys, I think, know my thoughts. I'm basically in full support of whatever they're doing, trying to make it a little more appealing to Western audiences and, having a tone maybe something aligned with the 2017 movie but different. So you guys know my thoughts on that. I mainly wanted to talk about the idea of where it's going on Disney Plus Hulu. Now, we did talk about the surprise of that when the news first broke, just because even though Disney isn't buying it back, it is just kind of a funny sort of loop moment. The franchise seems to be in a loop. It feels like next up this is going to get canceled and it's going to end up back in the hands of Saban. But I was thinking about this because it's such a similar situation in a lot of ways to what's going on with Doctor Who. Like, it's funny to think about because you probably noticed I've been kind of becoming more and more of a fan of Doctor Who. Like, I've always been a fan, but I've just been really into it these last couple years. And I've just really noticed following that there's some similarities here with what these franchises are going through. Like, there's a lot of differences, but a lot of similarities. But if you didn't know, most recently, just a few years ago, BBC made a deal with Disney for Doctor Who to be the distributor for the main series. I guess the backlog's on HBO Max for some reason, and probably other places, but the main show where it airs is on Disney as their streaming partner. And again, it's not a situation, it's just like Power Rangers actually, where they have the rights to stream it and then they kind of have the power of renewal to renew their contract, but they don't own it or anything like that. It's kind of like with the Netflix thing, like they didn't own Power Rangers, they just owned the exclusive rights. But anyway, it was contracted for 2 seasons as well as specials, and it was all exciting and hype and like this kind of next new era thing. And then now we're kind of in limbo where it very much doesn't seem like they're going to be renewing the deal because it seems like things didn't work out quite the way they thought. And you can't help but wonder if the same thing might happen for Power Rangers, because I feel like in a lot of ways, one similarity I would say between Doctor Who and Power Rangers is I think that at least here in the US, I feel like it had its moment and it just can't recapture it. Like, I think Doctor Who is much bigger than Power Rangers. I think it's definitely more respected amongst like nerd and geek culture in terms of like people don't necessarily scoff at it compared to Power Rangers. And it's a different situation because Power Rangers, of course, had a boom with children in the 90s with all the merchandising and all that stuff. But Doctor Who here, from what I remember at least, in the US, it was around the time of Matt Smith's seasons that I just remember it being really huge for a hot minute here in the US. Like, people were tuning in excited live for the Series 6 premiere, Impossible Astronaut. I remember, like, everybody I was talking to was binging it on Netflix, the old David Tennant seasons, and it really had this moment here. And, it's maintained a solid fandom in the US, but I feel like it's never recaptured that again here. Like, I'm not sure what it's like over there in the UK. I watch a lot of Doctor Who YouTubers that are over there, but it's definitely much more popular there, and it's much more a part of the culture. But I feel like in general, that franchise has struggled to sort of recapture its golden era when it was super popular, which I would say was around like the David Tennant years through the 50th anniversary. Felt like the huge peak for that. But anyway, I just think that's interesting because there's the similarity there of like trying to bring something back that once had cultural relevancy and popularity and has potential, but it just can't do it seemingly. Like I think Doctor Who obviously has been more successful than Power Rangers because they've actually had more seasons on the air and stuff like that. But I'll be curious to see how this rolls out because I always think Power Rangers has the potential. I think just on a conceptual level, if all the stars align and the quality of the show is right, it could happen. You know, they could make the show happen, but just given the similarities of the situations with Doctor Who, I could totally see the same thing happening. I don't know how long the contract would be for. Maybe it's only one season, but it might not do the numbers they would want. You know, I know that people love it to vilify Disney and paint the fans as some sort of victims and heroes rallying against them. And I'm not saying Disney doesn't do a lot of crappy stuff, but I do get annoyed at how oversimplified it is that they act like Disney is just one entity that goes around, quote unquote, ruining everything. From my perspective, the fans are the ones kind of ruining the experience of everything. But, you know, there's different facets and different departments that work on this. Like, in this case, Disney owns the distribution rights, and I'm sure they'll have some sort of oversight and be like, hey, could you include this? Or, hey, don't include this. But it's, like, different. Like, the people working on this are different than the Marvel Studios team, than the Star Wars team. You know, obviously, again, there's overseers at Disney in general, but people just tend to paint Disney with this blanket brush of, like, it's one entity that's ruining everything because we're miserable. And I don't think that's going to be the case here, but I just more, like with Doctor Who, I don't really blame Disney overall necessarily for the state of Doctor Who. I think it definitely created the situation where Ncuti Gatwa left early because they wouldn't renew it. But I don't really know what the numbers are. And at the end of the day, you know, maybe they felt their investment wasn't worth it, how much they paid for it. Who knows? I don't think Disney was the right place. Not because I'm like, oh, Disney hates everything and fans and rah, rah. But just I don't think it was the right place for the exposure. I'm not sure where. I honestly thought Netflix off the top of my head because, again, that's where everyone was binging Doctor Who back in the day. And I feel like more people have Netflix. So I just don't think it was the right move, not because Disney is, you know, the root of all evil for me, but just I didn't feel like it. For Power Rangers, maybe, because at the end of the day, I could see this going one of two ways. Is if it's kind of similar to Doctor Who, it might end up being a thing where it does okay, and maybe it does the 1-2 seasons it's contracted for, and then it just doesn't work out. Or it's like one of those other series. Like there's a bunch of series on Disney Plus I've like never heard of that end up getting multiple different seasons. Like every now and then I'll pop onto one of my TV sites I check news for and they're like, oh, Bulldog Warriors got renewed for season 3 at Disney Plus. So if it's kind of more targeting the you know, the YA younger kids audience, not like what Power Rangers was doing, but kind of trying to be like that and not trying to make it be like the next Doctor Who or something, you know what I mean? I think that it could be successful and probably run more than 2 seasons, but it could end up having history repeat itself like with Doctor Who. So we'll have to see. I think it's interesting. Again, this date here they're giving feels like a fast turnaround, but we'll have to see. I just hope we get more news. I hope this is concrete, and I hope we get like some more official statements sometime soon, and we can kind of get excited about maybe some casting rolling out. But I'm also still in the state where I'm fully expecting the possibility of this being shelved indefinitely. But what do you guys think? Do you think Disney is the right streaming home, or what do you think would be the right streaming home for Power Rangers? Let me know in the comments as always. Till next time, Dawson Ryder, signing out.